Leave me. Please ignore my cat throughout this video. Please. I'm trying my best to ignore him too. Whew. Cheers. Hello everybody. It's midday. My hair's a mess. I'm drinking mint tea. It's been a little while. I'm coming out of my brief hiatus today to do a quick video review about the Seattle-based experimental music duo Till the Teeth and their most recent project called HeadBodyHead. Now, as you may or may not know, the people behind this project are friends of mine. While I find the ideal of journalistic objectivity to be pretty much nearly impossible and maybe even undesirable to realize, I should add a little disclaimer here. I will try to be as honest as I can, even though I know these people, and just give my impression of the music without worrying too much. I also can't miss the opportunity to give Sandesh and John a bit of a hard time while I'm at it. But that also means I won't be talking about the artists as much, since I think that would be a little bit weird, to be frank. So, we'll get right into the music. HeadBodyHead is the second project from these two, coming after last year's longer self-titled project. This project, by contrast, is only 4 tracks long, about 15 minutes. So it's more like a EP than a full-length project, if we want to use those terms. Getting straight into it, the first track here is called Speak Loudly, and right away we get this sort of manipulated, distorted, sliding guitar tone, or bending guitar tone with a really narrow vibrato that's getting pretty close to sounding like a synthesizer, if I do say so myself. So getting off to an interesting start. When the percussive elements enter in pretty soon after, there's this sort of like blast beat, almost drumming pattern. There's a sound of maybe a guitar being hit, or the strings of a guitar being hit with like a wooden dowel or a drumstick. It all comes together into this sort of chaotic, intense, and kind of asymmetrical groove, which I like quite a bit. There are a bunch of pretty much undefinable things happening in the mix here, but of particular note is the atonal, kind of almost free jazzy guitar solo at about the halfway point from Ryan Carher. And the eerie vocal sample that sounds almost like children, taking part in some sort of call and response exercise, and that becomes much more prevalent as the track goes on and kind of is the centerpiece of it in my mind. Speak Loudly has a lot of similarities to more aggressive moments that I really enjoyed on Till the Teeth's last record. So definitely a strong opening here for me. The next track, L'amour/Campanita, is much more akin to something like All That Is True Is Rare and Difficult from Till the Teeth's last record, in that it's a lot quieter, a lot more, dare I say, atmospheric. My cat is trying to break down my door. Forgive him. He just wants attention, like all of us. There's some assorted percussion going on here that I like quite a bit. Some pitch drums, some cymbals, some bells, all sort of floating in this bath of reverb, along with some equally spacey samples. Whether that be sirens, seagulls, just general street noise. There are also a few sort of quiet synth lines and drones here and there, especially towards the tail end of the track. The foreground here, if there is one, is definitely dominated by some great vocals from Maria Lozano. And while I love the performance and especially the tone and even the mixing of the vocals that allows them to sort of blend into the wash of sounds behind them really nicely, I do think the first few vocal riffs, especially this da 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 ba da ba ba, not bad riffs in themselves, but I'm not completely sold on them for whatever reason. In this context, I almost think I would have preferred the vocals to stay maybe in the back of the mix a little bit more. Not because they're not pretty, but just because I think it fits the atmosphere, so to speak, of the track a lot better. And they felt a little bit too sort of concrete and almost R&B-ish to me for the context. But personal preference, maybe. Overall, I really did actually enjoy this grouping of sounds, and I think the track does a great job of sort of communicating this almost quiet, ambiguous, walking in the city at night sort of feeling. So I did like it quite a bit, despite those minor critiques. Next in line is Weather Beaten, which originally comes back to a sort of similar space or headspace as Speak Loudly did. There's this 3-against-2 drumming rhythm that turns into a sort of distorted groove, definitely, to use that word again, along with some chirping atonal synthesizers and distorted drones. These elements sort of build and come apart and come back together a couple times, eventually incorporating a double or maybe even quadruple reed instrument of some kind, maybe a form of bagpipe even. I really don't know. The sound kind of reminds me of the Thai P family of quadruple reeds, or some kind of South Indian double reed instrument like the Nadaswaram. Really, I'm just making guesses here. I have no idea. You guys will probably just have to tell me. Needless to say, it reminds me of the Thai family of quadruple reeds, mostly because there's this buzzing sound to the tone that I like quite a bit, and I think it actually works really well with some of the more distorted elements of the track. It also sounds a little bit outside of Equal Temperament, which, like, awesome. Yeah, we like that. The addition of some satisfyingly frantic drumming, towards the end of the track leads us to what was honestly a bit of a surprising transition for me. Not necessarily in a bad way, but suddenly we've got 808s, a bit of a beat going, coupled with these watery sort of synthesizer tones that remind me quite a bit of something off of Archy Marshall's A New Place to Drown, for instance, or maybe even a few moments off of his King Cruel material, which I am a big fan of. All that aside, some female vocals take center stage here again, from Emma Taylor, whose feature on Tillot's last record on Kairos was a big highlight for me, actually. I personally don't mind this switch up towards the end of the track. I actually think it brings some nice variety to the project as a whole, and also to the track itself. But it might seem like it comes a little bit out of left field, both in terms of genre and in terms of Weather Beaten, the track. I also have to say that I'm, again, not quite totally sold on the specific shape that the vocal line takes at certain points. Uncontrollable, undeniable, the variables. Not a bad riff by itself. I do think that the way that the lyrics come together with the vocal line are a little bit awkward to me, and the line itself feels a little bit familiar, or at least a little bit out of place given the context, right? We still have this wind instrument going on in the background, which I like quite a bit. It's again playing a little bit outside of equal temperament, and some of this and some of the more you know, out of the box elements of this last half of the track and the track as a whole don't quite come together for me with the more poppy or R&B elements of this last switch up. Last but not least, we have the shortest and most intense track here, appropriately titled Trim. This one is definitely metal adjacent. Another great vocal performance here, albeit a little bit different from the others, by Matt Moore. I have to say, the specific screamed or growled style of vocals that you find on a lot of metal records is a bit hit or miss for me. Doesn't always do it for me. But for some reason, the specific timbre of Matt's scream here, the way it's mixed, the context around it, and the performance itself really do it for me here, actually. Another bit of virtuosic drumming from John, some stabbing guitar riffs, a really heavy bass line, make for a great noise rocky experimental closer. Yeah, a great short outburst of an ending track. This project as a whole felt like it oscillated sort of between these two musical moods or headspaces. The nocturnal attitude of L'amour / Campanita versus the more intense, chaotic, almost aggressive at times feeling of something like Speak Loudly. That said, I'm surprised by how much I feel like the project comes together sonically, even given that sort of out of the blue transition at the end of Weather Beaten. There definitely feels like there's a through line here through all of it. I may be biased in that, considering I know a little bit more about these guys' musical backgrounds. Maybe it has something also to do with the bits of synthesizer, the percussion, the mixing. These elements come together to let what could just be a collection of tracks feel a bit more like, a solid EP, a bit more like a project. Anyway, I went really in depth on the music here. I hope you didn't mind that. I did it in part because I don't want to talk too much, obviously, about my friends Sandesh and John, who are behind this project. But I also did it because there are a lot of things to sink your teeth into here, a lot of things to grab hold of, even on the more ambient tracks. There's always a wide variety of sounds and layers happening in the mix, which I appreciate. There's a lot to look at, definitely. I also gave some sort of nitpicky, rather personal critiques, not just because, as I said, I wanted to give my honest impression of the music, but because I respect what these guys do, and I know them to be people who, as a lot of other artists and musicians should be more comfortable doing, I know them as people who are willing to receive criticism or critique and take it with a grain of salt too. Those are my thoughts on this latest release from Till the Teeth. I hope you enjoyed this rather in-depth review, and I promise I'll be doing more reviews at some time soon, if you're into that. The 7 or 8 of you who watch these things regularly will have to forgive me. But I have been working feverishly on my own music, actually. So look out for that. Anyway, later.